Hello, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. Today's video is brought to you by the journal that I keep right next to my desk when I get an idea or correspondence or something that I want to keep. This is the one. And I had opened it yesterday for whatever reason. I needed to put something away, I believe. And I remembered, gosh, I really enjoy making these inserts. It uses a glassine bag. This one happens to have a Velcro dot on it. And it's just using a strip of cardstock or a backdrop or something and made into a signature. And I did that when I made this journal simply because I knew I would have business cards and that type of a thing. And it's, it's an insert, so it's double-sided. Here I used a glassine bag. Let's see if I am even remotely in frame. Sorry. Here I used a glassine bag, and here on this one, the other side of that signature piece, I used a piece of vellum that I had folded over and then stitched around. So I'd stitched this side, the center, and the bottom so that I could create two pockets. And again, I used what I had on hand, and it was just a piece of vellum to create this insert. And then different size glassine envelopes. And I have found that I use the paper envelopes, the non-clear envelopes, as much as I like them and really enjoy putting them in journals, I don't use them as often, and it's maybe because you can't see them. And here's same idea. This is just a large sheet of vellum with one big pocket instead of the two smaller ones. And here is just a glassine envelope. The benefit of the glassine envelope is it's got a much thinner profile than the vellum does, but they work the same way. So I would encourage you, if you're wanting to make something like this, just use what you have. Coffee dyed tracing paper would work well if you've got envelopes. Scrap of cardstock. You do not have to sew these. I chose to sew in here with a zigzag stitch, but you could absolutely glue it in or tape it in or what have you. But it's just a fun option. So I thought I'd go over really quickly how I make that, and just with another little twist to it. And I was asked by a couple different people, when I decorate those little bits that, okay, here's one. When I decorate the little pieces that I made in the previous video where you don't have to have any creativity going on it whatsoever, when I took them to the next level, to please share those. So I've done a few, and I'll come back to that. I am afraid to move this because I'm afraid to see how bad the glaring lights are, but I will try to move some pieces into place to eliminate those. Okay, so this is what I came up with. I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but I'll just show you how I made it. This one is a slight bit different because instead of using one envelope, oh gosh, there we go with frame again. Instead of using one envelope, I used two glassine envelopes, and I put one on the front of one piece and then on the back. And then it's got, because the glassine is so thin, I've got a tuck spot in the center. So I could put in another journaling card there or what have you. So it's kind of got a neat profile, front, back, and I used 4 envelopes in order to make this. Again, if you don't have an envelope, no problem. You can use what you've got, tracing paper, vellum, and you can use paper, of course, but I'll show you really quickly how I made those. Also, because I like options and I would love for people to be able to use just what they've got, rediscover your own supplies. I used a piece of washi tape to keep this closed, and washi is repealable, so I could just, peel this off, and there's my opening, right? Just a piece of washi on the front and the back there. You can use a die cut or a little bit of a mini bit. This is something I found at a vintage shop. I could glue this down on only the piece that is going to set on the bottom of the envelope. So if the envelope flap was open, I could glue this right here and then tuck, because only one part of it would be glued, tuck in that little die cut piece to hold the envelope flap closed. That's an option. I could use a digital image. This is one of Tracy Fox Creative's faux cigarette cards or faux tea cards. I could do the same thing. Just glue along half of the back and glue that down there, and then just open and close it with that tuck because this side is glued down. No, this side is not glued down. This side is glued down. You can use a Tracy label or a ephemera bit, like I said, from Tim Holtz. The key is just gluing about half, and then when you put it on, make sure you're not gluing the flap closed. And then it works just fine. You can reuse it as many times as you want. I use the little tiny mini Velcro dots, and these are the ones I generally use. In the previous book, the Velcro thin clear fasteners, 56 circles, 3/8 inch, and I buy these on Amazon or get them at Walmart. So you could use those if you wanted. You could use a magnet if you needed to, though that's going to have a little bit bigger profile. What else? Okay, you know, just like I said, a digital image. This one, it's a hexagon shape. Just glue half of it down, and then you can lift up and down as much as you want. And these are thin, so again, it doesn't add as much dimension as maybe the Velcro dots would. So you've got some options there. Materials that I used for this particular project, I used 4 glassine envelopes. These ones are not coffee dyed or tea dyed, but you could use coffee dyed or tea dyed. Here I've got some better coffee dyed, and I grabbed 2 that were different sizes. So you don't have to, let's see, where did it open? It opens right there. You don't have to have them the same size, because look, let's see, I want the flaps on the out. I could, you know, use a larger and a smaller, and then just glue here and here, and I could tuck, you know, a bit in there, because it still looks kind of cool, right? I can do a little journaling card or tag or what have you. So they don't even have to be the same size. You can also do it single-sided like I did in my journal. You don't have to put 2 pieces back to back. I just wanted the option of making it into a little tuck, and so that's what I'm going to show you. And that's what I've done here, both of these, using the 4 envelopes, the little tucks. And in fact, if you were wanting to do that, maybe it'd be easier, because you can see exactly where the tuck opens if you use 2 different size envelopes. So that into the signature piece, the signature strip, I guess, and glue here and here on the back side, right? And then just tuck this in. And it makes it easier to find where you're starting and stopping, but you still have the pocket, the opening of the regular glassine envelope or pocket that you've created. All right, and here is, you know, let's see, does that fit? The color-wise, it's not a good one. I was gonna say I could just use this, but it's just literally a strip of card. This one happens to be, oh, it looks like 1 3/4 inch. The ones in the journal were a little bit wider. I think maybe those are 2 inches. You can use a little bit narrower if you want, or I just want to make sure that I have a little bit of support. See, I don't want it right at the edge. I don't want the envelope right at the edge of my strip of card. I want a little bit of support. So I move it in, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch, something along those lines. I didn't measure. And because this is going to be at the center of a signature and there'll be more pages in between, they don't have to line up perfectly, because they're not going to be seen next to each other. Now you want the 2 here obviously to line up, because they are going to be seen together. But on the different sides of the signature insert, they will not be. All right, enough talk. Let's do it. I use my grid quite frequently, simply because, I'm going to push those back. I use my grid because I'm not great at lining things up straight, and that's one of the benefits of having this type of a work surface. So I'll use my grid, and I'll use my magnets. I can use a piece of tape if I don't have magnets or a magnetic surface. I'll use my magnets to hold that in place. And I want to make sure that my envelope flap faces out. This is going to be the center of my signature. I want to make sure that my envelope flap faces out, not in, so I don't shut it, glue it closed or sew it closed. Put a little bit of glue, and I don't put much here because I intend to sew it. If I were going to not sew it, I would put a little bit more. I just want to hold it in place and let it dry. Now the grid also works as a tool, so I don't have to get it centered, but if I wanted it centered, the grid really helps me make sure that my piece is mostly centered. And you can see there, it's, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so that helps me make it straight. And some of you may be saying, Corey, that's not straight. It's pretty close. Lay it in, push it down. I think there's a little more at the top. I didn't measure it. It's not a big deal. Also, I used the strip that I had. I haven't measured this. When I'm done, I can also trim a little bit off the top and the bottom of this insert. I could use it for a smaller journal that way. Not an issue either way. So I've glued this is because of the way I've got it folded, this is the inside of my signature. I'd fold it in half and scored or creased it. This is the inside, so I'm making sure my envelope flap is up. If I wanted to do just a single one of these and not a double, I could glue my second one in and stop right there, and then I would just have a blank piece on the other side, right? So my envelope flap opens. This would just be on the back, and I could put, I don't know, a cluster or something along those lines. But I really want the double envelope. So I'll lay this in place, and again, about 1/4 of an inch. They're not going to be next to each other, so they are not going to show. I mean, if I go a little deeper or what have you. All right, in there, and it's mostly straight. So I've glued those in. Now I'm going to flip it over. And this will be the outside, because you can see the valley there. Not the valley, the mountain there. Lay it down. Now, when I glue this piece down, I am going to glue, make sure my envelope opens to the top, because I want it down like this. So when it's inside, I've got the opening on the outer edge. I am just going to put a little bit of glue where the glassine bags overlap. That'll make sure that it stays closed, and it won't show, because the glue won't show, because a lot of times, like when you're using vellum and or glassine, the glue can easily show through when you use wet glue, which is a lot of times reasons people sew. But because this is a double layer and this is clear glue, it really doesn't show much. And I got to be careful I put it in the correct way, and I'm going to line it up to the envelope that is already in place. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close is nice. And then I just push down. And one of the reasons I use this particular glue is because it's art glitter, and Barely There works, and some of the others that folks like work just as well. But it's fast drying, so it won't gum up my machine when I put my stitch right here. All right. Now, if you didn't want to sew, let's see, what have I got here? I could glue it down like that, and then maybe put a little bit of washi on, right? Just to hide that edge. Let's see, I just grabbed the washi that was next to me. If I'm going to put the washi down and not sew this, I would, so I measure, it doesn't have to be perfect. I would put a little bit of glue or glue stick. Washi is designed to be a temporary tape, right? And if I want it to be down there permanently, I would put a bit of adhesive to make sure that it stays in place. Make it straight, put it in, and there you go. I could just push it in like that and hide the edge, and I didn't have to sew anything. It's glued down. I'd probably use a little more glue than I used if I were using washi and a glue method, but I intend to sew it, so it doesn't really matter. So there's an option for you as well if you don't want to sew it. This is a really versatile project, which is one of the things I love about it. No matter the supplies you have, or no matter your personal preference, you can make it work. All right, last envelope. Our glassine envelope. I'm making sure that it opens to the out, and that's going to be on the top. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue along the edge, maybe a little bit more glue, because that's what's going to hold these two envelopes together. And like I said, it's really not going to show. I get my glassine envelopes on Amazon, but you can also purchase them on Etsy. You don't have to buy a bunch. I usually buy a bunch at once, but as I use them for things at school too. But you don't have to. You can get them on Etsy for, I don't know, just a few bucks if you don't have them. But like I said, use what you've got. Make an envelope. They're super easy. Use tracing paper or vellum or what have you. All right, so those are lined up next to each other. And that one's going to take a little bit longer to dry because I put a little bit more glue on. And I've got it like this. Again, I could call this good. I've got two little pockets. This is going to go, when I'm ready to sew my insert in, it's going to go in just like this, just like any page. I'll poke the holes or sew it in however your preference is, or whatever your preference is. And I've got an inside pocket, an outside pocket, and a center piece to put between the two pockets. When I sew these, I personally use a zigzag stitch usually, but you don't have to. It's doesn't have to be a zigzag. I'm going to pull my machine over. That's why I left the light there. Can't see it perfectly, but close enough is good enough. My machine is Zigzag Stitch is number 3, and I have a Singer Stylist. It's not a spendy machine at all. Got it on Amazon. So I did it 3 for zigzag, and then you've got 4 little arrows on the machine. Let's see if I can pull that down. Yeah, 4 little arrows, and it tells me the height of the stitch and the width of the stitch. Height and width, yeah. And so I want to make it just a little bit smaller than the standard. So I push these buttons just a little bit to give me a little bit narrower profile and a little bit less distance between the zigs. That's it. All right, there's that. And I will sew those. On the machine, on this particular foot, and the way my machine is lined up, there's a little line in the center of that foot, and that tells me that I'm in the center. And then I use my back stitch to hold it in place. And again, I chose this particular machine because it has finger pedals. I don't have to use a foot pedal, which is a great option for somebody who, for whatever reason doesn't want pedals underneath their feet or prefers not to use a foot pedal for whatever reason. All right. I've got one side done. And I know I don't really need to, but I'll go ahead and do the other side to just show you how quick it is. This is, actually, I thought about saving this for Mass Make March, but I've got another idea for that. And I'm absolutely going to do a Mass Make March. I'm actually really looking forward to it. Margaret from Seven Plaza is also doing a Mass Make March. She has mentioned so on her channel. And so I thought that'd be kind of fun to see the different things that we make, and maybe we can encourage and inspire each other and get ideas from each other and that kind of thing. So looking forward to that. Yes, I still need to use all the pieces I've made, but I haven't yet because, and I'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, done and done. Move the sewing machine, hide the ugly light. I'll just put this back up there. Okay, and it's done. It's ready for me. I can put it in my bin of pre-made ephemera, and like Gail Augustinelli has a spot in her sections where she has pre-done pages, and I would put this in the same things because this will work. I like to work in smaller journals than many do, but this will work in a whole bunch of sizes. And if this piece, I think this is maybe 6 inches, if this piece is too long, I can just trim it down to, 5.5 or 5 or what have you. So kind of a fun little insert, something I really enjoy including, and it's got the extra fun option of having a pocket in between. So there you go, there's today's idea. All right, the pieces, I will go through these quickly as I share my thoughts with Filler Up February and Mass Make March. I'd started, okay, let's go like this. People said they enjoy it when I do this, so this is what I'm going to do. Some of these you may have seen because I don't even know. The previous video I showed, different levels or degrees of decorating pieces and such. So some of these may be a repeat, and if they are, I apologize, but I'll go quickly. Cluster with flowers. I shared these. Oh, and that's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put this one aside. So remember, somebody else asked me to share how to tie the bow again to make it more clear and go slower. So I'll do that. Mass Make March, Filler Up February. All right, Filler Up February. The reason I was texting with a friend or messaging with a couple friends, and I had been asked before to turn on the camera when I'm making, just, like a create with me. But my comfort zone really is teaching, and that's what I enjoy the most. I feel like I don't have anything to say. I'm not super great at small talk. So when I just turn on the camera, I kind of fumble a little bit because it's not my comfort area. So I thought, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to bore everybody? And she's like, stay in your lane, do what you like to do. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. So I will try to be a little better about that, but no promises. And as I was putting together some of the journals, and those are in various stages of disrepair, I have so much pre-made ephemera that it's kind of overwhelming, and I've had to sort it all because as I've got sections of what goes where, but I don't always, when I'm busy and I'm doing a lot of things, I don't always put everything where it goes. So sorting that out and putting it into categories and realizing how much there is, and it's just a little bit overwhelming. So I decided I can do quick run-throughs when the journals are done, but just putting the ephemera inside the journals seemed kind of, I don't know, mundane, and I don't know how much people would want to see that because it doesn't show how the ephemera is made. It's already done. Oh, here you go. This was that pocket. I just tucked a couple of pieces of pre-made ephemera in it. And like here, this one's super simple. Simple, simple, simple. This one was the card, and all I did, because it had the images on there, I just used real faux vintage sellotape to finish it off. And this one was just a card, and I added a simple tab with a piece of lace. So even the finishing them off and quote unquote upping the creativity game can be, and in this case was, very, very minimal. And these, the pieces that I shown on how to make it like these circles, all I did was take some other ephemera and tuck them in the pockets. So I finished them off. This was a half of an envelope, journaling spot, and I just put a bit of lace on the top. Actually, the lace may have been there, and a Tracy label on bottom, and tucked it in the spot. And then this one is just a fold-over journaling piece, right? Oh, that was a accordion style, or a concertina style. No, this is not an accordion, a fold-over journaling piece. And then this tab was in there, and I just put that little tab on top. The piece, when it was folded, was a little short, and I thought, well, I can make that work. And tucked that in the pocket. I think I shared that one. This was just the Aces card, and I put a clear sticker on in the top and a label and some tiny washi tape, and that finished it off. And I had decorated some of the clusters. I still have a huge bin of clusters, but I was intentional with the clusters. Here, let me grab a few. I was intentional, like I grabbed some pieces and then my butterfly bin so that I could put butterflies on some of the clusters. And then this is not even a fussy cut, it's just one of the Tim Holtz cards, the ephemera cards. So to make sure I mixed it up a little bit. So here's another butterfly. This was just one of those leftover card strips, folded in half, lined it, and just put a little label and an offcut of a die cut in there. Super, super simple. Okay, and I used some of the birds, and the same thing with the birds. Okay, I'm going to throw things everywhere. Same idea with the birds. I grabbed my birds and bird cards and such, and wanted to make sure that I made some clusters with birds. I grabbed some insects too, but I don't know if I actually ever finished those. And these are clear stickers, and butterfly. These were the pre-done clusters, not pre-done, prepped clusters, I should say. So I had done the paper piece, I had done the sewing and the lace. I just needed to finish it off with a label and a die cut or an image or something like that. Here's another one of those cards. All I did was add a label to it and some glossy accents, not glossy accents, Nuvo Deluxe Distress Glaze. And another one of those strip cards, just added a few pieces to the top. And here's a tiny, or a smaller cluster with a little fussy cut bird. I think most of the birds, I got some from Tina at Shabby Dabby Doodah, but I believe most of these are from Tracy Fox Creative and her bird kit. And there, this was just a globe, a world card, and I used a larger paper die cut and a label and a little bit of that washi. That's why that washi was out. I used a little bit of the washi at the end. So you can see just simple next steps. Oh, there's another birds. And this one, it's really hard to tell. So this was an image in the Tim Holtz ephemera pack layers. I think these are the Tim Holtz layers that are a little bit bigger. And then these two flowers are rub-ons that I had, tiny little flower rub-ons. So I used the rub-ons there, and then I used a Tracy label. Would you look at that? And it's super subtle. If you didn't know, you'd think that was part of the image. But again, it's just those little white flowers to add something. And then again, these are all, these are just rub-ons on a Tim Holtz layers piece. This was that little fold-over alphabet piece that I had, and I just used a rub-on flower and a rub-on dragonfly. to just add something to it. And this was, I had a masterboard of this. This was white or off-white thin paper, copy paper, and I had just laid it all over a piece and sewed it. Like a masterboard, Mod Podge, but all the same color, because I like the lines and the different texture that it adds. So I just added lace and a label and a definition and filled it up, I guess. And then there's that. This one was that compass rose, and so it made sense to me to put, I don't even know if that's a rose, maybe it's a type of a rose. I just put a rose rub-on in the center of it, and that's all I did. See, this is what I mean by the faux washi on there. Not actual, but it's part of the image. And then I've been using a piece of real faux washi just to cover that up to add some layers. Here's just a mini notepad, scrap pad. This one doesn't have the flaps. It's just a simple mini one. Tuck it right in, and then there's a pocket in the back. Most of the time, and I probably will on this one, I'll use a little tiny rub-on of a flower or a die cut of a flower on that front piece. You know what? I'm going to push that aside to do, so don't forget. A journaling card. This one, all I added on this one is I added a piece of washi to where I'd sewn this over. Again, this is a Tim Holtz layer. And then a label on the bottom with the numbers on it. I just thought it kind of added something. It looks like it might be a longitude, latitude measurement. I don't know if that's really what it is, but it looks like it might be. And then just a simple little butterfly. This was just a piece of card just to tuck in. Just a label and a bird die cut and just a tiny bit of something. And this is, I guess it could be an over the top or a tuck in. I had a little bit of extra lace on there, so I just left it so I could put it over the top if I wanted. And then if I do that, if I don't use this as a journaling space or top, you know what I would put it over probably? It's like if I had a belly band on a page towards the top, I could do it this way, like this. So this belly band is glued down. Just tuck this card right in. The little bit of lace would hang off the edge. I could still take it out and write here, here, and here. So there you go. That's probably how I'd use that. Another cluster. Oh no, this is a booklet. I just decorated the top of the booklet. And instead of, a lot of times I'll put the Distress Clays over the whole flower, but here I just put it over the centers of the flowers. I might have even shown that one. And just finished decorating that. Here, just a little, oh, this one. I think these pieces were in here. Just a bird's nest die cut, a fussy cut bird die cut, and a Tracy label. And, oh, I tucked a couple things in these pockets. This is simply just a little itty bitty notepad that's held together. I needed a little bit more brown to balance out the color. So I just put a little bit of a brown strip at the top. And that's in the bottom of that, and then a label. I think these are the Tim Holtz ephemera bits with a piece of that faux vintage cellophane tape, and then just a decorated tag in that pocket. And so that finished off this one that I had shared on the previous video. This is just a sticker, a butterfly sticker on that one. And these are some of the die cuts by Libra Designs by Susan on Etsy. Finished that cluster. Almost done, guys. And then these are some vintage pieces. They're like die cuts, but they're really thin that I had, and so I used that on one. And more of the Libra Designs by Susan with Seth Apter Vintage Beeswax, embossing powder on top, and then that's just colored Nouveau Glaze to add some color to the center of those flowers. And another one of the journaling cards. Yeah, journaling card. Let's see, what's that? On this one, it was a really simple layer. I used a rub-on flower and a label, and that's it. I didn't even add any accent or glaze or what have you. That one. Okay. I'll show you those. And then this one, I had the base done and I had the pieces in here, and so I just added a Tim Holtz ephemera pit to the top and then a label, and that's it. All right, here are the others that I had shared. So this one, it's simply just a piece of folded over journaling paper. And then this one is a Tim Holtz ephemera bit. I didn't even put it on anything. And then this label, I didn't even put it on anything. Fit in the pocket like that. And I figured when the person opens this up, pulls it out to write on, they can add that to it. So just a little bit to decorate that one page. Same idea with this one. This is a vintage cigarette or tea card, some vintage coupons, it looks like, tucked in the back and tucked in the back. That's back and pocket at the same time, back. Put that in there. a vocabulary card that I cut down to make it fit. It was a big card and a short word. And then just a label with one of the rub-on flowers on it. So not necessarily fancy or elaborate by any means, but just kind of a simple thing. And then there's another cluster. Oh, here we go. This is that bag that I had shared. I just put a plain old blank journaling tag in it simply because it didn't need much. So I just popped that on in and it's done. That one I already shared. And here, this was the one that was all lace. I used one of the Tim Holtz layers and backed it and then trimmed it down to fit better for my need. It still works just fine. And then this is just, I believe, well, this is stuck. Okay, good job, Cor. I did something. Oh, I think I just have it tucked in really tight. And I'm pulling, I know what I was doing. I was pulling this back piece. I'm like, it's not that tight. I just used a label and a label on a piece of journaling card to tuck it in right here. And that's that. All right, let's see, how am I going to do this to get it out of the way? All right, I'll do that. And then I'll put the clusters that I haven't decorated, I'll put that up there to block that light. Okay, so I shared how I tie these bows. And it always works for me. Somebody said, no, it doesn't work. Okay, so when you're tying your shoe, you're at this angle, right? When you're tying your shoe, your hands are here and your shoe is facing out because your foot's beneath you. But when you're tying something in front of you, you've got a different perspective. So when I say right and left, if I turn it facing me this way, it's a different visual. It's a different dynamic. When you're tying a bow, if you want it to lay flat every time, so you've got your string, what have you. When you're doing the first piece of the bow, you've got, your right hand and your left hand, right, and your string from the right and the left. You want to make sure the right, you start on top, so you bring it up over the left. You know what, that's hard to see because of the color. Let's zoom in a little bit more, angle it down. Yeah, okay. And I'll use this one. Well, I wasn't going to, but this will work just fine because it's the same exact principle. Okay, using this one. So you're not tying your shoe, you're tying a bow on this. So you do it just a tiny bit differently. The right-hand side piece, I start it on the top. All right, and then I loop it around and it still ends up on top. So what started as the right piece, it's now on the left-hand side, but the bottom of the string is on top. Now, this is a really thin string and this isn't going to work so great. So I am going to use my magnet to hold that tight because I don't have an extra finger. Normally I would just call my husband and say, hey, honey, but he's not here. He went to Boise. So what started as my right-hand piece is now on top and it's facing my left. And then I take that piece and loop a bow, just make a little loop. And then I take the piece that's now on the right because I'm right-handed. Try to hold that down. There you go. Take the piece that's now on the right, wrap it around and pull it through. Here, let's make that a little bit bigger so you can see. Wrap it around and pull it through. Maybe. I am on camera, so it's, challenging. All right, Corey, try that again. It's because I've got this in here to hold it in place. I just need a third finger there. Okay, a third hand. Wrap it around, tie it. Grr. Okay, I never, ever fuss with this, ever. It's super simple. But because I'm trying to do this on camera and I'm trying to use the magnet to hold it in place, there we go. Wrap. And I'm all fumble fingers. Wrap. And there. Okay, that'll work. It's held it tight enough. Okay. Now I'm moving that. Obviously, normally I wouldn't use a magnet. I would just call for Brian. Hold this while I tie it. And there you go. Your bow is flat. Well, here we go. I'm going to push that through. And you don't have to. This is just to make it more aesthetically pleasing. But the bottom line is my bow is straight. And that, again, start on the right with the right. On the top, flip it through. It's still on the top, but now it's on the left. Make a bow with that. Loop it around with the right and pull it through. And you'll get a flat bow every time. Okay, sorry for the length of time that took to do to make it so that it was tight enough. I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much again for the kindness, the support. You people have been beyond amazing, and it matters. It makes a difference. So thank you for that. Take care and happy creating.